The propaganda model for the manufacturing of public consent describes 5 editorial distortion filters which impact the reporting of news in mass communications. These are ownership. Corporations that want profit pushes things that benefit them. They have to serve their owners, not you. Keep the stock price high. That's the goal. If you know the head of your corporation doesn't want you to cover something, would you? Advertising. They are not actually selling the products that you see on the screen. They are selling you. Keeping eyes on the TV is the only way they make money. Telling you something that you don't want to hear, you might turn off the TV. The entire Republican Party is built on telling their voters that they aren't wrong. Fox tried to be rational after Twitter lost, but then they were losing viewers to Newsmax and OAN, so they reversed course and told them just what they wanted to hear. Media needs eyes to sell spending habits to their advertisers. You are the product. Advertisers won't stand a company that goes after large corporations because they also can be in the firing line when their crimes are exposed. So the media doesn't cover the corruption of the government anymore, nor do they cover any of the corruption of the corporations as they continually destroy unions across the nation. Sources. This is an important one. To get access, you need to support those in power. If you want to be a newsroom or corporation, you must submit to Republican conspiracies. Trickle-down economics has no evidence of working, but since science has shown that there is plenty of evidence for them not working, why doesn't the media ask about this? When Republicans push these lies, why don't they get pushback? Most Americans know that they don't work, and the reason why we all don't agree with the reality? Media isn't there to inform, but to make money. Look at the headline. Many Republicans agree with Biden. Trickle-down economics has failed. This is a news article covering the fact that there is no proof of it ever working. How about most Americans are right about the failure of Republicans' signature economic lie? Flack. Attack those that dare ask questions. Can't question the media, nor can you question the motives of the elected officials. Now, this is coming from a Democrat, that we can't question why people are doing something. I mean, if we call out those that are corrupt, what would this world come to?
A lot of public highlighting of Democratic division. Yeah. We were talking earlier, you weren't crazy about having to air some of this dirty laundry, but it's happening. What's happening to Senator Sinema? Is this healthy for the party? Having a state party, her own state party, censure her? Like I said, most people will look at what they're censuring her over is over a disagreement on tactics, not on the issue.
Yeah, I just don't come from a school where you're constantly airing dirty laundry. Like, there are really big divisions in Washington right now, period. Democrat, Republican, within each party. But I just don't believe that the way that you get back at other people is by putting that on air, airing that publicly. So I don't love that. I also don't think that, you know, if we disagree with someone, that's a normal part of governing. People just want people to be responsible.
The news story is, should they do this? Not do they deserve it, nor even why did it take so long. These are the two people destroying Democrats' favorability for big money. How corrupt are these two? The most corrupt of the Democratic Party are still a far cry from the corruption of Republicans. All that framing is more information that the people would have, and it would educate the population about what's going on. common enemy? Someone to fear so you stop thinking. Communism, terrorism, Satan, gays, trans community. What does fear do? Damages your memory so you can't remember. When they report crime so America believes it has been rising, even though it has been falling for decades, what use is knowing of a single incidence of crime hundreds of miles from your house? When Republican states have higher crime, why do Americans trust them on crime? It isn't a few percentage points, it's 45% more violent crime. Crime is dropping, and Democrats have the plan to decrease crime further. Republicans have fear. Fear can interrupt processes in our brain that allows us to regulate emotions, read nonverbal cues, and other information presented to us. This impacts our thinking and decision making in negative ways, leaves us susceptible to intense emotions and impulsive reactions. All these effects can leave us unable to act appropriately. They use fear against you. Stop, breathe, and realize they are trying to get you to watch so they can sell you. Ask yourself, should you worry about a single act of crime 100 miles away from you when blue states have lower crime than the 1940s? So what other ways are they using to manipulate you? Those are the general categories that the media uses to stop progress. How about the specifics? Never ask why. They never ask why. The media will never ask why things are happening beyond the basics. Doing this requires work and would train you to be more critical. Why would they want you informed and be able to understand the reasons why things are happening? It isn't like they are actively giving Republicans an advantage, dismissing your concerns and not asking why Americans are willing to give up their democracy.
Republicans appear, by the way, to have a narrow but distinct advantage, roughly 3 weeks away from the midterm elections. The latest New York Times Siena College poll finds 49% of likely voters said they plan to vote for a Republican to represent them in Congress, compared with 45% who plan to vote for a Democrat. That is an improvement from last month when Democrats held a 1-point advantage among likely voters in this poll. The economy and inflation are the two top issues, followed by the state of democracy, abortion, and immigration.
You know, the thing is, Reverend Al, you can talk about abortion, the state of democracy, immigration. Those numbers, though, not only down low in that poll regarding what most Americans are concerned about, but over the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've seen in one poll after another, the economy, inflation, always near the top. There was one poll that showed democracy. I think NBC poll had it number 2. But other than that, it's always been about the economy. It's always been about inflation. You have an overwhelming number of Americans believing that the country's going in the wrong direction. And so that is becoming, as we get further and further into this campaign, that's becoming more of a burden on Democrats, especially after last week's terrible inflation report came out that showed inflation is still red hot.
How about asking why Republicans have always done worse in the economy? Red states' economies are worse than blue states, and Republican presidents have always performed poorly, while putting forward no policies whatsoever to improve the economy. But the population somehow thinks voting for them is a good idea? They have no plan for tackling inflation. They have only complained about it. Why should anyone vote for them? Actively trying to overthrow the democracy and trying to take abortion rights away, and they have an advantage? Treating you like you're stupid is what they do. It makes their life easier, and you won't ask questions either. Former Republican Joe Scarborough is just that horrible of a person and shouldn't be on TV. He helped push the lie that Democrats are going to take away your guns, push questioning about vaccines, and the lie that Republicans can't be racist. He isn't smart enough to be on the air, but they pay him $13 million a year to misinform you. Hashtag Fire Joe. Hashtag Fuck Joe Scarborough. Having a former Republican cult member tell us patriots how he just didn't know Republicans are that bad is preposterous. Democrats said we were wrong, and I kept trying to explain, but I just didn't know. Fine, he has learned his lesson. That's great. Should he really be on TV because he understands some of the basics of reality? He still shouldn't be on TV hosting a show where on a weekly basis he finds out that he is surprised that Republicans are stupid and shouldn't be in government. When they find weekly that Republicans shouldn't be in charge and do nothing for America, but still aren't asking why anyone should take them seriously, they are actively ignoring reality and manipulating America by omission. We also have them using passive voice, like when most news articles, which is designed to stop you from doing anything to change the world you live in. Passive voice treats you like you're stupid. Do you like that? Protests break out. Funeral of Iranian woman who died after moral arrest. Did they serve the wrong meal? Do you hate when funeral services serve cheerful food? How about protests break out after a woman killed in moral police custody? Dies after moral arrest. Was she in custody? How did she die? As rent rises in San Antonio, many tenants struggle to pay. Is it the mystical rent fairy again? That guy, he is making everyone's life hard, but there's nothing to be done. However, landlords jack up rent to make more money while city refuses to take action. Who is doing the rent raising? However, when someone does something against the powerful, it is active voice. The gunman who killed 2 Connecticut officers and wounded another fires over 80 shots, report says. Can't use active voice or people might learn. How about with 80 shots, 2 cops died and another one wounded? It's always passive voice when they deal with power. Hey, this thing happened, but there's nothing we can do about it, so don't worry about it or why it's actually happened. You don't need to ask such questions. How about we go back to the first one and use the same active voice they do when protecting power? Moral police arrest woman and beat her to death in custody, says family. The media will also ignore reality with suppression by omission. When they select to cover a topic, they are actively choosing what they deem important for the country. Ignore an important story or just repeat an attack and ask why they are having this issue. When they just covered inflation, did they mention that inflation is being driven by corporate greed and bottlenecks in supply chain, aka private business failure? Or do they describe it in the abstract? In the abstract, it looks like it's bad for the Democrats, explaining that this is a failure of capitalism. Changes that dramatically now, doesn't it? Republicans have always been for no government intervention, and Biden has already fixed many of the supply chain failures of corporations and the private business that they were and are unwilling to fix themselves. This is where massive corporations and advertising are working hand in hand to misinform to improve Republican chances at the polls. The people believe 60% that corporations are taking advantage to raise prices, and 80% want the government to crack down on corporations to lower prices. But however, having the media tell the same lie over and over again, or just ignoring the why, supports their advertisers. Over years, telling this lie makes those that don't know it's a lie believe it is that important. And those that don't know, well, repeat a lie often enough and it becomes the truth. Is a law of propaganda often attributed to the Nazi Joseph Goebbels. Among psychologists, something like this is known as the illusion of truth effect. This is how they do it. They might cover reality once, maybe twice, and then they go right back to ignoring the why. They claim that it is your responsibility to keep yourself informed of what they say is true or not. They are just telling you what is going on and reporting on the opinions of people on both sides. And you should figure out the truth. It isn't like having to work multiple jobs as rich constantly lower the amount of free time you have will have any effect, right? I mean, it isn't like there are thousands of articles about inflation that ignore the why of what is going on will overwhelm the search results when you actually do have the time to go look at a single topic that they refuse to inform you about. Want to know who supports what side in politics? Muhammad Ali would have supported the Democrats. Albert Einstein, George Orwell. If you want to be on the side of the greats of history, Martin Luther King, supporter of union rights, it seems that there isn't many historical figures that you admire that wouldn't support Democratic policies. Who supports the Republicans that want to overthrow democracy, burn books that don't agree with them, decrease the education that our children receive, create a boogeyman, attack the trans community, outlaw abortions, and privatize government services? Well, anyways, so what are we seeing that they aren't covering as the government's trying to take away our freedoms? Why the book bans and censorship? Those who rule want to crush knowledge and freedom. What a surprise. The current campaign to limit what can be taught in high school and college classrooms is clearly designed to divert angry voters from the deeper structural problems that cloud their own personal futures. We have book burning and the Republicans trying to stop educating people. They have already misinformed the public so much they are terrified of you knowing the truth. Reagan's advisor said of accessible college, "We are in danger of producing an educated proletariat that's dynamic. We have to be selective on who we allow to go through higher education. If not, we will have large numbers of highly trained and unemployed people." People being able to access information and have free time on the hands, being able to better yourself without spending years struggling to pay off loans, you might demand that your country do better. That is dynamite. I mean, it isn't like the true history of the Civil War wasn't about slavery. Scared you for a second there, didn't I? You thought I was going to go full racist. Well, the Civil War wasn't about slavery, and saying it actually is the bigoted position. Here are the slave states: Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, and Virginia. So 15 slave states. Hold on one second. The Constitution says, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose an amendment to this Constitution, which shall be valid to all intents and purposes. As part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states. With 15 states, ratification needs 3/4. So to pass the amendment to end slavery, we would 15 out of 50 equals 35. So, but there 3/4 of 50 is 37.5. Can't have half a state, so 38. Today we would need 3 of the slave states to vote to abolish slavery. Wait a minute. How would the Civil War be about slavery if it couldn't end without the slave states willingly giving it up? Wouldn't it be like saying pedophilia is about love because that's what the pedophile said? Why are we listening to the slavers? If the Civil War couldn't be about slavery because you couldn't end it, what was it about? We have an extensive record of rich white people saying it was about slavery. So, rich white people, it was about slavery. They just wanted to enslave the poor white people. Those that wave the battle flag of the traitors are so misinformed. They are waving a flag that supports rich people overthrowing America because they want to live in a country where people aren't allowed to disagree with the raping and murdering of people. If you dare question how the media covers stories, then they bury you. How about the simple fact that the news covered Hillary Clinton's emails and there was nothing there for a year and a half? How about a chart? Seems like her news about her emails had particular important value. So what was the crime? Republicans investigated her over 20 times and never found any crime before this. So why would the media be so happy to cover their latest allegations? The entire political establishment is truly bent against informing. What would have happened to the FBI director that came out and denounced a Republican who they said committed no crimes? That would be absurd. It never happened, nor will. Please don't attack citizens who commit no crimes. So once again, the media covered the Clinton insanity of Republicans like there was something there. Then the FBI helped bury her. Shouldn't this be a news story that got months of coverage? FBI attacks innocent citizen? How corrupt is the FBI violating the Constitution to get their chosen candidate? Pointing out the facts about the media ignoring reality and attacking a Democrat? That isn't bad. They wouldn't have a problem with that, right? The myth of disproportionate media coverage. The quote from this is so immensely stupid. I can't believe that this is in an article anywhere. The complaint is derived from whole cloth. It finds support in a pair of recent studies from Harvard Kennedy School Center on Media, Politics and Public Policy, as well as the pro-Clinton masses on social media, who have made disproportionate a rallying cry in the critiques of the media. Derived from whole cloth, but find support in scientific studies from a major Ivy League institution. Now, this is some small paper? No. This is political, that the media cites nonstop. Not even a low-level person in it. Jack Schaefer, political senior media writer. How about these two sentences pass the editor's smell test? Made up of whole cloth. They just have, PhDs that research this stuff. We know now that political is going even more Republican in its views because they want to become mainstream. Even though the media is already vastly Republican in all their coverage. Here's how it works. People don't trust the media because they bend over backwards for Republican conspiracy theories. So to prove the media is fair, they bring on more Republicans. That should do it. But Republicans are told the media is out to get them. So how does the media becoming more Republicans stop that? In reality, what it does is the more right-wing the media sounds, the more right-wing the Republican base gets because, well, the media is saying Democrats are evil, Satan, baby killing, and the media is out to get us, so it must be worse. Dare to even bring forward this reality, the media will attack you. How dare you try to inform the people? So Jack Schaefer, so incensed about those damn intellectuals doing research and people reporting about it, he completely changed his tune, no longer complaining about the intellectual rigor and precision of those in the media. The absurdity of people like this is laughable. His entire shtick is that the media doesn't do the work to be trusted, but when it comes to a Democrat, he blames a victim. It is Clinton's fault the media attacked Democrats. And his proof, since the media covered Clinton until they found something else to report, is proof that the media isn't biased. Since the media didn't go after Twitler for his fake university, they didn't find any more evidence, so obviously it wasn't worthy to continue. So, whatever the media looks into, they find something to report. So obviously they should have reported that. This was all before the new owner has decided to go into a more Republican frame to take eyes away from Fox propaganda network. So he thinks people will start trusting them if the Republicans write more articles. Can't see that going wrong. The media spent 18 months on a news story of someone that has been investigated over 20 times by Republicans and no crimes ever found. The FBI violated every notion of innocent until proven guilty. The First Amendment? If the government tells the population you shouldn't listen to someone because they don't want people believing what they would say, that is suppression of the First Amendment. If a cop stands in front of you with his gun drawn and tells everybody around you, don't listen to him, that's a violation of civil rights. But the media doesn't care because the Republicans enjoyed it. Then after nothing was found, again, the media attacks those pesky PhDs that do research on the topic of the media's failure. This is literally a Flack article complaining about Flack. He is saying, covering the fact that Clinton's didn't do anything wrong after dozens of investigations into her and a year and a half of media coverage of her emails is wrong. It is wrong because it might make people not do this coverage in the future. Maybe the media wouldn't cover an obvious lie from Republicans. What? What is it saying? When you do something wrong, claim the other side is doing it also to muddy the waters? The framing that the media uses helps Republicans. How they frame it can dramatically change how you see it. When the media frames a conversation around who is going to win, they are perverting the democracy. When they do this, they damage the Democrats who have the policy that the American people want. Instead of covering what the outcome of election means, they cover who is ahead in the polls. It's cheap, it's easy, it doesn't help. 70% of Republicans want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. 66% want to expand Social Security. 75% want to break up big banks. 70% want Medicare for all. This is how the media perverts democracy. Ignore reality and kick the Democrats in the teeth for trying to give the American people something that the rich don't want. This coverage lowers voters' participation. Why would you want to participate when it's just Democrats versus Republicans? Would you participate if America's democracy at stake? The media actively damages the Democratic Party because they don't know how to inform anymore. Most people don't have time to search every political position of the parties and figure out if they really mean to pass them. The media is to inform people. However, you are better informed than most people because you're here. Horse race journalism helps Republicans by suppressing the vote. Who wins when there is low turnout? What else turns down turnout? Being negative. When you believe that nothing you do will help, why would you vote? So the media is always negative because there has always been a bias for that. When bad things happen, it gets people to watch. So over decades, they have moved to more bad news. What happens when you crowd out the good news? Or, report the same amount of bad news no matter what's going on? People are not able to see what is going on. If they experience the same amount of bad news stories, then nothing has changed, obviously, hasn't it? Low information voters don't have information. They don't have information, and the media won't give them the information to help them vote for better candidates. So how does the media handle the fact that the more education you have, the more likely you vote for a Democrat? Well, I tell you, it isn't how most people would respond to that information. Wait, the higher educated you are, the less likely you would vote for Republicans. Does that mean that learning about reality makes you more likely to vote for the better option? Is it being taught critical thinking or being exposed to different thoughts and people helpful in analyzing what politicians say? Nope. Must be indoctrination. It couldn't possibly be true that being informed and educates makes you want to vote for those that are the better candidate. That would just be silly. When Republicans label Democrats, does the media push back? Of course not. We still hear how the Democrats are going to raise the deficit. Democrats have always decreased the deficit when in office for decades, and Republicans have always raised it. Notice that the start was Clinton. Then when Bush took over, he increased the deficit. Obama cut Bush's $1 trillion deficit to a fraction of what he was left. And then Twitler took over and exploded the deficit to $3 trillion. So why doesn't the media push back to inform? It couldn't be that the billionaires that own the media wants tax cuts. That can't be it. It's too simple. I mean, they wouldn't use false balancing to hide that labeling. The amount of labeling that they use couldn't be hidden any other way. I mean, they wouldn't say something is proof of how politics is partisan by pointing out a half a dozen Republicans as proof that Democrats are bad.
Alice Stewart, CNN political commentator S.E. Cupp, and CNN senior political analyst John Avlon. Let me frame this as a question here. The question really is, are we post-history when it comes to October surprises? Does anything matter anymore? Does something like this matter? Or has really Donald Trump changed? After Access Hollywood, is anything possible?
Does anything matter? Does anything matter to Republicans? The topic is after a Republican got elected when he is completely unqualified, will they do that again? They haven't introduced a single piece of evidence against Democrats.
Yeah, I think yesterday for CNN declared the October surprise dead. First of all, anyone following the Herschel Walker campaign should not be surprised by these revelations. We've learned a lot about Herschel Walker, none of it very good. Secondly, I don't think there are a lot of conservative or Republican Georgia voters who think any differently of him now. In fact, I'm hearing, at least according to his campaign director, his fundraising surged in the light of these accusations and allegations. And I'm not hearing anyone in the party, Republican leaders, denouncing it. They're standing by him. So we might be, alarmed by it, I think rightly so. But I don't think this will shake loose a lot of voters. He might not win, but I don't think it's going to be because Republican voters in Georgia decide, well, this is too far.
Well, all right, look, so, part of this, obviously, is that the bar for Herschel Walker couldn't be any lower. But still, I think the Daily Beast reporting is surprising to the extent that on the same day he's saying, I don't have a clue who this woman is, they say, actually, it's a woman you had a previously undisclosed child out of wedlock with. So that, that doesn't track. Look, in defense of Georgia voters and Georgia Republican voters, in 2020, they proved that swing voters, were still alive. They split the ticket between folks. And that's one of the reasons Joe Biden won is Republicans, particularly in the suburbs in Georgia, said, you know what? I can't deal with Donald Trump again. I'm going Biden. The problem is I think a lot of Republican operatives have been saying out loud and commentators, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he's a hypocrite on abortion. All we want is this seat. Character doesn't matter. Competence doesn't matter. Truth-telling doesn't matter. And that is, I think, a really dangerous thing. That's about not being post-history, but potentially post-truth.
CNN declared it is dead because Republicans don't think any different, and the party is okay with just taking power because they want it. The media is alarmed by Republicans not caring. The bar can't be lower because he is a Republican. Republicans have said they want power and they don't care how they get there. Have you noticed they haven't even brought up a single Democrat yet?
When it comes to this stuff.
But what we're seeing is that character and ethics are really not a qualifying factor for elected officials anymore. People are looking past a lot of that.
People? No. Republicans are looking past that.
And it's unfortunate, but it is actual reality. And here's what we're going to see. October surprises are just as common as we saw the leaves changing and death and taxes. People expect that. But in my conversations with people in my home state of Georgia, they are not concerned with what Herschel Walker did in 2009. They're looking at what he is promising to do as a U.S. senator.
He's not promising to do anything else. Let's be honest about this. What we're saying is character doesn't count in a Senate seat. What we're saying is competence doesn't count because nobody's voting, right? And that's what's really dangerous, because if you go down that slippery slope and you say that character doesn't count, competence doesn't count, telling the truth doesn't count, what you're really saying is party above country, power above everything. And that's antithetical to the idea of the Senate and to the ideals that our democracy actually depends upon, which is enough people saying the person over the party.
But I don't even know. Go ahead, Alice. Go ahead.
What people are focusing on are the policies. They look at what Herschel
What policies?
There's no policy here.
His policies with regard to fighting crime.
What policies does Herschel have? He's against it?
He certainly wants to
Is Raphael Warnock for it? I mean, you got a reverend here. You're a person of faith. You got an actual reverend or someone who lies about getting an abortion while being anti-abortion on the surface. Isn't that, to the extent that faith impacts political decisions, I'm not clear why some Georgia voters who are people of faith wouldn't say, given the overturning of Roe, you know what, the actual reverend might be a better emissary of faith.
Trump.
Walker didn't promise anything, but the Republicans get to come on TV and repeat talking points. They allow this conversation to go on when the Republican doesn't provide a single policy that they are supporting. Republicans are bad for the economy and crime, but she gets to lie because there is no policy. They asked what policy because Republicans have none, except running America into the ground with a debt ceiling to take away Medicare Medicaid, and Social Security. Herschel Walker, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Donald Trump, and Matt Gaetz are all Republicans. Still, no evidence against any Democrats. They are all Republicans. There isn't a single Democrat they give for this example. This entire conversation is based in look how bad these Republicans are. America is past caring about anything because Republicans are past that. Participating in America is completely worthless because one party is bad. They are so bad, even though there is no evidence about Democrats being that way. You shouldn't even bother participating.
Too. I mean, they already compartmentalized character, morality, honesty, truth-telling, integrity. And I worry that if we cede that, what are we voting for? Because it's not conservatism. I don't see conservatism in a lot of this. I don't see policies, principles, ideas. I see not virtue signaling, but vice signaling. I see people like Herschel Walker and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz vice signaling to their base. And all we're voting for now is who do they hate and are they the same people I hate?
What Georgia voters are looking at is the front page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and all of the TV stations in Atlanta, and there's a story of crime after crime after crime. That's a huge issue. And they're looking at
I get that.
And they're looking at crime is a big issue, the economy is a big issue, and inflation is an issue. And Herschel Walker is talking about those issues. And they
Herschel Walker's not talking about anything.
They look at Raphael Warnock as someone who is part of the problem, and they want to see a solution.
Okay,
and he is furthering the Biden.
That would make sense if Herschel Walker hadn't won the nomination. There were other people to choose from, and we already knew a lot about Herschel Walker's character and competence before he was the one Republicans chose. It's not Herschel versus Warnock. It's Herschel versus any other Republican.
And look, I just, democracy does depend on enough people saying, look, I'm going to vote for the person, not the party. I'm an independent. I voted for Democrats or Republicans in my life. The idea is that something should be disqualifying. Truth-telling, hypocrisy, competence, the ability to string together a coherent sentence, whatever it may be. But the excuse that, it doesn't matter because I'm voting for the policies is just not credible in the case of Herschel Walker.
Allison, go ahead.
One last thing on that. There were other good candidates that ran in the primary that should have been the nominee. The agriculture director in Georgia should have been the nominee, but he wasn't. And where we stand right now, we have a binary choice between a candidate that will support policies that Republicans in Georgia like and a candidate that will further the Biden policies. That's what we're at, a binary choice right now. Herschel Walker, without a doubt, is a flawed candidate. But right now, he is the candidate that Georgia.
Binary choice? What policies? The policies that create more crime, worse economic issues, and the other absent policies that won't address inflation. This is what they give you. A false balance. A Republican is allowed to go on TV and lie about a binary choice, and you aren't allowed to make her answer what policies. Republicans are brought on to challenge Democrats. However, Democrats aren't always brought on to challenge Republicans. Even in what is supposed to be the most liberal news outlet, NPR. How about a little light reading from American Besieged by Michael Partee? False balancing. In accord with the canons of good journalism, the press is supposed to tap competing sources to get both sides of an issue. In fact, both sides are seldom accorded equal prominence. One study found on NPR, supposedly the most liberal of the mainstream media, right-wing spokesmen are often interviewed alone, while liberals, on the less frequent occasions they appear, are almost always offset by conservatives. Further, both sides of a story arc are not necessarily all sides. During the 1980s television panel discussing on defense policy, pitted experts who wanted to maintain the existing high levels of military spending against other experts who wanted to increase the military budget even further. Seldom, if ever, heard were those who advocated drastic reductions in the defense budget. Progressive and radical views are virtually shut out. How about a truly radical view? Republicans should be forced to answer basic questions when they come on TV and lie about policies. The reality is, the only way for them to win is to have the media pervert the story. They think they have to do all this just for Republicans to stand a chance. The media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all push Republican content for them to even be looked at as reasonable. So the question really is, how insane are they when you really take a look past the surface, when the media doesn't ask why? When the media is so perverted and hostile to reality, Democrats, and democracy, one can understand why Republicans even stand a chance. The corporate interests are just misinformed as the rest of the population. One might think that CEOs would prefer Democrats because they are the ones to ensure the continuation of America, not to mention since they are better with the economy, they will make more money. So when you watch the media, ask yourself, what are they doing? This is nowhere near an exhaustive list of why and how they manipulate the public opinion. Like, share, and subscribe if you would like to help save America, because you will do more with those actions than the media will do with all those eyeballs for sale. And down below, if you really want to stop global warming, click on that link and donate, because the power pipe will lower the cost of energy and help end global warming once and for all.